Manse.
On Out and About, we have come across many well-known personalities in the music world.
But seldom do we meet non-Asian musicians who are interested in Indian music.
Our guest today has devoted more than 30 years of his life to Indian music. He is Mr. John Perkins. Out and About.
I first heard about Indian music in the 60s, late 60s, when Ravi Shankar was big with the Beatles and so on. But I was very lucky at that time to meet a Scottish Sanskritist called Alistair Dick, who was teaching at Dartington College of Arts. And he was very knowledgeable about the music, as well as, as well as being quite a good sitar player. So instead of just being involved in the fashionable interest, I actually had the opportunity to study the music academically right from the very early stages. And Alistair taught me for 2 years, then he put me in touch with a teacher in West Bengal, in Shantiniketan, Professor Suresh Mishra, with whom I studied just over the winters of a few years over the sort of 70s. And then eventually in in the 90s, I moved from Shantiniketan. By that time I'd met quite a few people in London who had contacts in Benares, and I moved to study with Professor Rajban Singh. I've always been interested in the esoteric music of oppressed peoples. My mother came from Scotland, so my first interest in music was really in Scottish music, in the bagpipes, and in the traditional music of the Scottish people that that was the result of, to some extent, of their repression, but also of their social history. And I've developed the interest in Indian music very much as an addition to that. But of course there are tie-ups, because Scottish music and Irish and Celtic music generally has a lot of drone-based material, And of course, you know, Indian music is infinitely more complicated, but also drone-based. So, I mean, that piece that I played to you in Meg Mulhar sounds to me to be just like straight out of the Scottish Glens. You can almost hear, you can almost feel the mist. It is true in India that young people are tending to drift away from their traditional culture, and that I regard as being rather sad. But there are still, in the rising generation, an enormous number of Indian youngsters who are taking the music very seriously. I think those who are forecasting the demise of Hindustani classical music are a little premature myself. I think it's a musical form which has enormous strength and resilience, and it survived 250 years of British domination and lack of interest, really, without too much of a problem. And I think it's likely to continue for some time to come yet, even without the help of people like me. I've got involved recently in the corporate sector, so I'm doing a certain amount of work in receptions and so on. I'm very interested. I have done one or two Hindu weddings. In fact, one wedding I did was sort of Hindu Christian. So I'm available for that kind of work. I also do work in schools. I'm very pleased to take people, you know, to take school jobs.